Hey everybody, Jake here, and today I'm going to go ahead and do a disassembly of the Boos Blades Aero Mini. I had a viewer request this, and I really don't mind. I have to take it down anyway, so let's go ahead and run through it real quick. As far as supplies, I have alcohol. This is 91% isopropyl. I have Q-tips, bit driver, Torx T6 and T8. And some nano oil for lubricant. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'm going to start with the screws on the lock side, just in case. I mean, they're not going to strip as far as I'm aware, but in case they did, you'd want them to be on the non-show side typically. So you're just going to take your T6 and go ahead and unscrew those, and try to keep them in order as best as you can. And also keep them on a very non-slick surface, just to avoid losing them, because that would really suck. But I'm sure in this particular case, William Boos could help you out there. And then you want to do T8 for the pivot screw. Now you'll notice there's one screw that we're not taking out, and that's this one here. This is also a T6, but this is for the lock bar insert. I don't see a reason to remove that. If any of you have a particular reason or a good reason that you remove lock bar inserts, let me know. I'd be curious. But I just don't want to risk it. And there goes the pivot screw. So now we should be able to go ahead and lift this scale off. Maybe, if it wants to work with us. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So there you have the lock side scale. And here you have the knife. And I'll go ahead and do a quick rundown of some components for you guys that are curious. Okay, so we have the blade, and then here and here you'll see the ceramic ball bearings. Nice little touch. This is obviously the show side scale. I can already feel some grit on there, so this cleaning will do it good. This is a backspacer. You can remove this. It is a floating backspacer, but I don't see a point in it at the moment, so I'm not going to. And then of course you have the lock side. Now, one thing I noticed in a previous disassembly, let's go ahead and take that off. You can see there are steel inserts here for the ceramic to run against, so it doesn't damage the lock, or the show side, or the lock side rather, either one. Also, this knife has an internal stop pin. You can see here, it's just two little pegs, as opposed to an external stop pin, which, well, interchangeable terms. Anyway, it's the stop pin's mounted to the blade of the knife instead of being mounted on inside or outside of the handle scales. All right, so you can see there's previous lubricant stuff on there. Probably the lubricant I was using before. But what I wanted to point out was this lock bar. Actually, I don't know how deep it runs. I don't think it runs very deep because they left it exposed to the titanium on that side and the carbon fiber here. So to those of you who are wondering, hey, is this a sticker carbon fiber, which I've heard a lot, it's not. This is actually one solid piece of carbon fiber that's, inlaid. So there was some confusion about that, I believe. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and remove the bearings. And we're going to want to clean all this up. So I'll set the scales to the side for a minute. One more thing. You can actually remove the clip. It's an internal screw on the lock side. I have no interest in removing the clip, so I'm not going to do it, but just wanted to show you there. Okay, so to clean this, you'll want to use some alcohol. I'm using a very small amount, just on the end of a Q-tip here, just to give me enough to get some of the grime and stuff out of here. And Q-tips are very small and very cheap, so you can really get in there. So you're going to wipe away all of the previous lubricant. Even if you're using the same kind, I would be a little hesitant to leave any there. I'll try to get it all, just in case. And make sure you hit all the surfaces. And especially get anywhere to where there might be any grit locked in. So any part that's covered by the handle scale that you can't see normally and you're not sure, what exactly is in there, go ahead and try to get in there too. I'm going to get in this little opening as well, just in case, because I noticed some dirt in there earlier. Try to get all that cleaned out. Alright. Get a little more, and we'll go ahead and clean off the bearings here. And you know, I haven't had a chance to kind of A/B ceramic bearings versus steel bearings, but because the only really bearing knives I have are this and my ZTO 450 CF, and the action on that knife is just far superior in my opinion, as far as what I like. You may very well like, the Aero better. It is very snappy detent. And really make sure to get the ball bearings really covered in alcohol, because obviously there's some parts that aren't exposed at all times. What I generally prefer to do is actually take like a paper towel and pour alcohol on it and run them around on there. Just not enough time on this. So make sure to get all of that. It looks like you can actually remove these. I don't know how. I don't know. Oh, and if you're curious, you can remove the other end of the pivot as well, in case you want to, get up in there. I'm not going to at the moment, just because it's another piece floating around, and I can lubricate the bit I do need from the position I have it in currently. So, trying to make sure to kind of get all, especially back here near the back spacer, make sure to get all that grit out. Anything that might be in there that might cause the action to feel a little rough, or that might cause any future issues. Just want to make sure to get all that. Okay, that Q-tip looks like it is done for. So go ahead and get another one. We're almost done with the cleaning here. And you don't have to do this, once a week or anything crazy like that. But if there's a knife that you're carrying every day, at least in my opinion, I would probably clean it, once every 6 months or so, I think would be good. Or when you notice it, maybe not performing quite as well as it had been or what you're previously used to. Also, ceramic detent ball, nice touch. But that might be a cause for, a little bit of cleaning there, just to make sure that it's running optimally. Okay, now that you have your knife all cleaned up, I'll bring all this back into frame. We will go ahead and lubricate the parts we need to lubricate. So, I have nano oil here. This is not what I normally use. I think what I've been using is like Hops 9 gun oil or something like that. But I'd heard a lot of recommendations about the nano oil, so I went and picked some up. Specifically from Nick Shabazz. So I guess let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so this knife, the bearings sit in a little pocket on either side of the blade. Some knives have it a little differently, depending. So since we disassembled this with the lock side first, what we'll do is go ahead and we'll want to do the bearings on the show side. So you just want to take a little bit of lubricant and get it right there. You don't want to overdo it, just because it'll be leaking everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and get that down on there. And I'm going to put just a little bit more on there and kind of get it to roll around. I'm probably using a little too much. It isn't too bad though, I don't think. Okay. That should be plenty. Let's set the blade back down on there. And then we'll go ahead and go to the next bearing. So again, just put some lube in there. Maybe make sure you're not watching this with someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, or might hear that out of context. That wouldn't be fun for anyone, would it? Okay. And there's one more thing that you'll want to do before you reassemble the knife all the way. That's just to get some lube right here in the pivot. You've probably gotten it if you've done anything like I have, but just to make sure. And I'm going to put just a touch right there as well. Okay, so knife's all cleaned up, knife's all lubed up. Go ahead and put it back together. make sure everything fits snugly. And I generally like to do the pivot screw first, just in case. Now, I haven't had any issues with this screw backing out any, but if you are experiencing that, a little bit of blue Loctite will help you. Do not use red. It is permanent. Not necessarily permanent as in it's never ever going to come out again, but permanent as in you're going to need a heat gun or hair dryer to remove it without stripping the screw 9 times out of 10. Before I do the rest of the lock screws, I just want to show you here. You can actually adjust centering with your pivot in most cases. So I'm just going to show you here. If you loosen up the pivot, you'll see it starts to go into the show side. Tighten it up, it starts going to the lock side. So I'll get centering about where it looks right to me, and there we go. This lube is leaking out. This stuff's too expensive to be leaking. Let's see here. We need a T6 for the other 2 screws here, and we are almost done. And then we can take a look and see if the action has improved any. And the biggest thing is just to make sure that all the gunk's cleaned out. Also, there's no need to disassemble these straight out of the factory. There's no point, really. They lubricate them appropriately and make sure they're clean enough in most cases, especially when you're paying this much for a knife, that you don't really have to worry about it. And you should probably let whatever lube is in there sit in there, just because they've probably done more research on the break-in period than, you know, most people have. Oh, wow, that is actually noticeably smoother. So the detent on this knife is pretty strong, or it has been, but I'm liking it now. Well, I liked it before, but this is pretty good. No smoother on the drop shot. I think the blade's too light on this knife. But yeah, that's the disassembly for the Boos Blades Aero Mini. I do have another disassembly video coming up because I'm about to film it right after this one. That should be coming out in time with the reviews for these knives. Alright, thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, all that great stuff.